Hey guys, this is Aaron Jimenez, and I'm super excited to jump into this next. I don't know if we want to call it series, but just this next couple videos that I'm going to be doing, all about relationships. So it's really interesting to me that so much rises and falls on our ability or our inability to do relationships. When I first did a video a couple days ago, when I talked about my commitment, and please feel free to go back, and look at that video. But I talked about the fact that it's crazy to me that nobody gives us a, a booklet of how to do relationships, and it's such an intricate part of our life. It's in everything we do. Obviously, when I think about relationships, or when we think about relationships, we think of intimate relationships. That's just one form of a relationship, though. There's also relationships with our family members, relationships with our children, relationships with ourself, relationships with our jobs, relationships with our coworkers, with our supervisors. Everything we do is relationship based. And here's the crazy part about this. If we don't know how to do relationships, we have a completely different life than those who know and understand how to do relationships. Completely different. And maybe it's not, the fact that somebody's a better person than somebody else is. And I don't even know what that means, to be honest with you. But it's not even that somebody's a better person than somebody else. The reality is that if we do relationships well, we will have a completely different experience than somebody who does not do relationships well, right? So I mentioned earlier that I've worked for years with probationers and parolees, and I share this with them a lot, because if somebody has a difficult time creating relationships, and they just don't know how to do it, and they come across as very standoffish, and they're just not a likable or an agreeable person, then they're going to have a much more difficult time on judicial supervision, and they're going to have more eyes on them, right? If I'm working with a judicial officer, and I don't get along with them, and every time we talk we're fighting, we're not going to get along. And guess what? That judicial officer is going to have eyes on me a little bit more often than if I had this great aura about me, and I could get along with everybody, and I was just the fun guy, and everybody loved hanging out with me. That person typically has less eyes on them. And there's a sociological phenomenon that says, where there are more cops, there is more crime. And that's just because, not because cops are crime individuals, but because there's more eyes. There are more eyes on that area, that location, that space, and it's a sociological effect that when there's more cops in saturating an area, it creates what sociologists call a barrio. Uh, and um, and so when somebody doesn't get along well with their judicial officer and they're fighting with them, that judicial officer will check in with that person more often, which creates more eyes on that person. If somebody gets along really well with their judicial officer, there will be less eyes, because that judicial officer will assume that the person is doing okay, right? They're a great person. They have this great feel about them, and it just, they're doing really great work. Um, and so, all that to say this, the type of life that we live will depend on our ability or our inability to do relationships. Okay. So, back to that judicial example for just another moment. So, if somebody is able to do relationships very, very well, will have less eyes on them, which means they will be on judicial supervision a shorter amount of time. If somebody does not know how to do relationships well, and they're fighting with their probation officer, parole officer, they will have more eyes on them, which means that they will find more infractions, and they will be on their judicial supervision longer. So, by the way, this isn't, any sort of declaration against law enforcement or judicial officers. None of that at all. The point is, um, if we do relationships well, we have a totally different experience on this planet than those who do not do relationships well, right? Somebody who does relationships well can walk into a car lot um, with a little bit of money in their pocket and walk out with a new car. Somebody who does relationships well can have less experience and less um, education and get a job. Somebody who does not do relationships well might have the same amount of money in their pocket, but because they come off as a jerk or they're standoffish, nobody's going to want to work with them or hear what they have to say. Um, if somebody goes in for a job interview and they don't do relationships well, most likely they'll be passed over for that job. So everything we do in life is based on our ability or our inability to do relationships well. And we're going to dig into a lot of different skills as this moves along because this is what I love to do. I love sharing content that teaches people how to do relationships well. Because for so many people, it's a learned skill. There are people who are, who just kind of come off as, just a nice person, and they genuinely are a nice person, and maybe they don't have to actively learn the skills that I'm going to share. But they still use the skills that I'm going to share. They just, for whatever reason, they learned them at a younger age. Maybe they had a family member who showed them how to do these skills. So those are the skills that I'm going to teach and talk about throughout the next few podcasts here or YouTube videos. So again, remember, everything that we do, the type of life that we lead is based on our ability or our inability to do relationships well. The type of jobs we have, the type of partners we have, the type of home that we have. If we have an ability to share with our partner and with our children, what we're truly feeling and experiencing, those homes have a much better feel about them as opposed to homes where somebody just really doesn't know how to share what they're feeling. Those are the homes where, I'll stereotype and traditionally and traditional and stereotype, and I'll say, mom's at home with kids, and dad walks in from work, and mom says, "Oh, you must have had a rough day," and dad goes, "I'm fine, I'm fine. I had a great day. It was fine." And mom or wife is saying, "I don't know, man, something's off." And he's going, "Nah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just leave me alone. I'm fine." And it's just weird, right? It's just off. Uh, Now, if he had the ability or the skills to understand why his wife was asking the question she was asking out of concern and not out of shame and not out of all these things, and again, these are all skills that we'll talk about in the near future. He will be able to say, I did have a rough day. Thank you for recognizing that. Then this is what I need to have a better day. This is what I need. I just need to be close to my family. I need to feel closeness to somebody, and I choose to do that at home with my partner and with my children. And if he was able to say that, it's a totally different experience. It's a completely different experience than if he comes home and says, "I'm fine, everything's fine, leave me alone, quit asking." So this session is just to really talk about the importance. I'm just kind of laying the groundwork of the importance of relationships and really how important they are to us in our everyday living. And once we learn these skills, everything's different. Everything's different. Once we learn these skills, everything changes for us. We're able to have great communication. And here's the interesting thing, by the way, and I'll get to this in a little bit. This is a little teaser, I guess. There's a saying of relationships: it takes two to tango. I'm going to share with you guys a little secret. It does not. It does not take two to tango. It does not take two people doing 50% and you're doing 50%. And I'm super excited to share examples and to share different opportunities to be able to teach this, because it 100% does not take two to tango. Think about intimate relationships, right? There aren't two people who see each other and who are going, wow, okay, I'm really attracted to this person, but I'm going to make sure they do their 50%. No way. It's one person who makes a move and says, dude, how do I get to know you? How do we do this? And again, we're going to go over all this, and I'm so excited to share it. I wish I could just do an hour long video and just share all these thoughts that I have written down on my computer. But I'm just kind of laying the groundwork. It does not take two to tango. It only takes one person to change the entire makeup of a relationship. And I'm super excited to teach that skill. I hope you're all doing well, and I look forward to the next video. Thank you, guys.